What I really want to talk about today is where we are seeing potential and future problems in the industry, the type of treatments that are causing claims, and what to do when, or how to deal, should I say, with your patient, your customer, if they have cause for complaint or that they are threatening to sue you. And remember, with this type of medicine, it's elective. So they're not really patients at the end of the day. They are consumers. Your patient is a consumer. So they are electing to have these treatments, and there is a whole raft of consumer law sitting behind the scenes, and therefore you have to be more vigilant and you have to have better record keeping when you get complaints and when you are consenting with the customer stroke patient. But let's not panic, because when things do go wrong, and they are going to go wrong, that's when we step in to try and help you. I've got about 20 minutes, I suppose, so at the end of that, then I'm quite happy to take a few questions, unless I'm thrown off for overrunning. That's to keep me to the to the right thing. So that's me after the work that was done. Hamilton Fraser has always been about trying to raise standards and trying to give risk management, and we obviously are there to try and protect you. The reason, just to pick up on Esther's point earlier, why insurance premiums are going up, I will talk a little bit more in a few slides' time. That's in a nutshell, what I have just spent the last couple of minutes talking about. Mistakes are going to happen. We are human. There are thousands of these procedures going on. None of us want to make a mistake. I think every single practitioner I've met over the last 17, 18 years of insuring them, whether they are a nurse, doctor, dentist, surgeon, I don't think I've ever come across a practitioner that is blasé about the way they do their treatments and don't care about their patient. But mistakes do happen, and the problem these days is that if a mistake happens, regardless of whether you are negligent or not, you will still get sued, or there is a high percentage chance that some action will be taken against you, and then you're into the defence of the whole situation. And it's not just the patient, it's the damage to you and your reputation. And no one wants to have that hanging over them. No one wants the time and the effort to actually defend these things, let alone the cost. A quick slide on where the industry is going. It's ballooned, as I said earlier. It's a massive growth industry, and even throughout the recession from 2008 even to last year, the industry has been growing exponentially. There's a few statistics there. 1.3 million cosmetic procedures carried out in the UK. Over 50,000 cosmetic surgery procedures, certainly knife to skin work. Liposuction is on the increase. Women are increasingly turning to liposuction now for the fat-busting treatments. So a lot of the aesthetic weight loss treatments haven't given the results that women want, so they're turning increasingly back to liposuction. And if you talk to any insurer, whether it be ourselves or anyone, even the defence bodies will tell you that the vast majority of claims come in from liposuction. So there's a growing issue in the industry as well. And male surgery, male treatments are on the increase, whereas 5-6 years ago there wasn't so much of that work being done. Now that's starting to pull up. Now let's talk a bit about the claims. Here's some figures which we've pulled together. This is just Hamilton Fraser, so we're not talking about the myriad of other insurers and suppliers out there. It excludes the defence bodies, and we all know what the RCN are about to do on the 1st of July. So if we were to overlay their figures, those would need a much probably bigger screen to put the chart on. But interestingly, everyone thinks that dermal fillers is absolutely safe. Well, we see the most claims, or the highest value of claims coming in from dermal fillers. We've always known that laser treatments have the potential to cause large damages and large claims. But interesting, the dermal fillers result over the last 3 years. We don't have results for 14, as you can imagine, so this is up to the end of 2013. £800,000 worth of payments and defence costs made by just Hamilton Fraser. In terms of botulinum toxin, that generally is a very safe procedure. It's looking at around about 150,000 quid, but what you tend to do is when something goes wrong with Botox, then it really goes wrong. Yeah? So that's probably slightly swift because the frequency of claims are probably quite low, but the value, 1 or 2 large value claims have crept in. But that gives you an idea. I think the total figure of that is somewhere in the region of £2.5 million of payments. And a lot of those are still outstanding. They're reserved. They're increasing year on year as the reserves grow as well. So it gives you an idea why premiums are on the rise, because if I was to put the years 2005 to 2007 on that, so the 3 years previously, the claims were very, very small. So you can see that the claim frequency, the claim values are starting to increase. And that's probably down to things like more practitioners coming into the market, the experimental nature of treatments these days. There's a lot more treatments being done, and a lot more people now wanting those treatments to be done. So it's only natural that claims are on the increase. Premiums, by the way, just to put that in, generally have stayed for the very low-level treatments like fillers and Botox, have stayed relatively flat, if not come down over the last few years. Where you tend to see larger premium increases is anything to do with laser work or Fraser or the more experimental treatments. So that's why you tend to find that if you're operating at that spectrum of the market, you'll see your pricing creeping up. Whereas at the lower end, the pricing has been generally quite flat. Not to say that it won't go the other way over the next few years. And I said fillers, laser, IPL and Fraser. They're the most common types of claims that we currently see. Here's some quick pictures of some of the injuries we have seen. And you can see this is laser claims. On your right, those 2 pictures there, that's obviously the chin area, neck area, quite severe blistering. Marks, burn marks, which are difficult to get rid of. And again, most laser claims, they're in the visible part of the body. So they are in the arm area, in the leg area, around the bikini area. And that's why the claims generally tend to be a lot higher, because not only are you trying to put that right, and some of these will go over time, but it's the pain, the suffering, the inconvenience, all of that is added in to the cost of a claim. Not just, that will go in 6 months' time, use a few topical creams and that sort of thing. And that's why those claims are quite high. There's quite an adverse reaction there. I don't know exactly where that went wrong, but you can see some of the things. This isn't common, and that's why I'm saying, going back to my original slide, let's not panic, but this is what can happen. Here's a Fraser claim. You've got leakage there from wounds which haven't healed properly. You've got depressions, contour effects. Here's another one there, but you get lumpiness and bumps, bleeding, scarring, scabbing, all of that sort of thing. Fraser claims, to be fair with you, are generally into 6-figure sums. So we're talking £100,000 plus for a Fraser claim. A lot of the original Fraser claims, or the original, can we call it laser lipolysis style claims were due to the failure to aspirate. So there was no taking the fat out. The fat in the original, when it was burned, was left in the body. There was no aspiration. So obviously the newer machines, the newer procedures, the newer techniques now are a lot better, but they still go wrong. So it doesn't take a genius to work out. You only need a few claims on a book of practitioners at those sort of levels of claim payments, and then suddenly that puts the whole premium book out of kilter. That pushes pricing upwards. Why do patients make claims? Well, I think we all know why they make claims, but I've put a few reasons up there. Injury outside of the consent form, so that's not explained, side effects not explained, or techniques not explained. Even if it's on the consent form, patients will still make a claim because they didn't understand it. They weren't given the time to go home and think about it. How many patients have you had through the door that say, I want to look like Angelina Jolie? I went in and said, I want to look like Brad Pitt. They showed me the door. You've got to understand your customer, and you've got to get them into a situation where they really understand. Just showing you a picture. It's not like going to the hairdresser where you go down to the hairdresser with 2 or 3 styles and say, can you make my hair look like that? But increasingly, you're seeing customers, patients coming in saying, I want to be thin. I want my nose straightened, or I want my eyebrows symmetrical. So those sort of things. The results weren't where they went. So deep down they're never going to look like Angelina Jolie, but you have a good go. And then that's not the way they wanted to look. It's never their fault, is it, that they couldn't get like that? It's always going to be your fault. Or it doesn't work at all. Isologen was a classic example of a treatment way back 10, 12 years ago that just did not work. But it's your fault. It's not the patient's fault. Manufacturer runs off, it's your fault. And then there's obviously the issue that generally it's the lady in the partnership goes home and the boyfriend, husband says, what have you done there? God, you look a nightmare. And then they start putting the pressure on, and then they wade into the claim process. So these are the sort of things that we see. You all know about the PIP scandal. That's at one huge extreme of where this can go wrong. And the PIP scandal caused a ripple effect throughout Europe, obviously emanated in France. But that was allowed to happen because of poor regulation. And the people behind PIP knew that. And they were exploiting the market. But I wonder how many other PIP-style scandals are just out there waiting to happen. Over 70 new products come into the UK every year. Not all of them have the clinical data that we would like to see, let alone the industry would like to see. Where can it go wrong? I think I've touched on a lot of these. Patient selection, not managing patient expectations. Consenting is poor. Adverse outcomes, not managing aftercare, those sort of things. Body dysmorphia. We're all learning about this, but 2% of the population apparently suffer from this. And this is one of the reasons why Hamilton Fraser, for example, will not insure beauticians to do aesthetic Botox fillers, that type of work, or any other non-medically qualified practitioner, is because you can be a very good injector as a beautician, I'm sure, but would you be trained to deal with something like that, or to deal with aftercare if something, God forbid, went wrong? Let's give you an example of a bad consent form. There it is. That's a bad one. So, nothing. Claims at the end of the day will boil down to who said what, where and when. Because generally speaking, it will be you and the patient, the customer. So what normally happens is that the patient will be injured, they'll go to a lawyer, and the lawyer will say, well, what do they tell you? Nothing. And then you're into defending yourself that you did explain everything. So consenting is very, very important. It shouldn't be a tick box exercise. I mentioned the lettings industry earlier. The other part of our business, we deal with disputes. We've dealt with 36,000 disputes between landlords, tenants and their letting agent over the last 7 years. And 71% of those letting agents lose because they did not have the evidence. Yeah, it's all about evidence. If it's not written down, it hasn't happened. And consenting isn't just about ticking a box, it's about patient leaflets, it's about aftercare leaflets, it's about consenting, allowing the patient to go home to think about it or to go away for a few hours and then come back. So it's about 1 or 2 sessions to understand what they want, what they're trying to achieve, and then explain the product. Especially if it's experimental. Again, put yourself in the patient's shoes. They walk into a clinic. You've got a white coat on or similar. That's very stereotyping, but you're getting the feel. They won't ask you about whether you've done this before, or how many times that you've done it, or are you qualified, or how long did you study for, and how many of these type of treatments did you do. Naturally, they're going to sit there, they're going to feel comfortable. And then it goes wrong, and then it's down to you. And even if you've done nothing wrong, remember what I said, you're going to have to defend yourself. So find a balance between information and information overload. Don't shove everything at them. You've got to treat the patient as the layperson, that they know nothing, you know it all. Make sure it's easy to understand. So don't use abbreviations, don't use slang, don't use medico speak is what I call it. Keep it simple. Warn the patient, always warn them that it may not turn out the way they think, or that it may not give the desired effects. So make sure that their disappointment levels are managed. And the other 3 or 4 things I've put down there, and I come back to the bottom one here. Consent is not a single event. Remember the other thing, which a lot of, especially with Botox or botulinum toxin and fillers, you offer, a lot of practitioners offer series of treatments. So let's give you some injections today, come back in 3 weeks, then come back. Really, technically, you should be consenting, having a chat before every treatment. Even if you're not changing the dosage, even if you're not changing the area of the body, you should be sitting down with them and talking to them, just to make sure something hasn't happened. Have they been on holiday? Are they about to go on holiday? Why the rush? If someone says they want to have cosmetic treatments in 2 days' time because they're getting married on Saturday, they want it done on Friday, back away. So circumstances change, diet changes. They could be ill. They could have contracted an illness. But because they've booked in the session with you, they're going to turn up. Sometimes things go wrong from there. Again, documentation, I think it's quite straightforward there. Make sure you've got manufacturer leaflets to hand out. And this slide really, again, is about, we call it How to Be a Recording Artist. I'm not going to break out into song with you. But it is about documenting absolutely everything and make sure it's legible, kept on a computer for at least keep those records. I would suggest 10 years. Minimum of 6. Because of the law, they can come back and sue you after a period of time. I think these are all relatively straightforward. Top tips to avoid a claim? Communication. That's what that is saying, in a nutshell. Communication. Make sure the patient understands what they're going to have done to them, what the effects could be, what are they going to look like at the end of it. A quick tip for you: if a nightmare patient comes into your clinic, and you'll know if they're a nightmare, because they don't seem right. They don't feel, they're a bit aggressive. They're they want everything done quickly. They look like a bit of a prima donna, bit of a meathead if it was a bloke. And you've got this gut feeling, yeah, send them out. Send them down to your competitor down the road. Let them take it on. Because trust me, they're the ones that will go wrong. So if you have a gut feeling, don't do anything. Yeah, politely say, sorry, we don't do Botox, or we don't do that. You know, we sell medicines or something, I don't know, but just don't get involved with them. A quick couple of case studies with Fraser. Unhappy with the size of her upper thighs, wanted Fraser on her inner thighs. The doctor who performed the treatment also recommending completing the outer upper thigh. So he recommended work. She didn't want it, but he recommended doing it. What happened? It went wrong. Yeah. So treatment was performed incorrectly and in the areas that the patient had not needed work being done. So not only did he say, well, let's do that, then it went wrong. The upper thighs were left uneven with unsightly depressions with deep contouring effects, which were unlikely to improve. So the outcome, 60 grand. Interesting to see that actually the patient only got 19,500 quid. The other 40 went on defence costs. So the winner there was clearly the lawyer. The losers were the patient, because I don't necessarily think that 20,000 quid is going to be a lot of compensation for what happened. And presumably the policyholder, the practitioner, had a whacking great increase in their premium and had to live with the fact that they went through it. So ensure that you're advising a patient correctly, take into consideration they actually want, the age, the body type, keep information, keep that communication going. Don't suggest something, or certainly if you're going to suggest something, make sure they understand what's going to happen. And finally, a filler claim, 40-year-old woman. The defendant actually was a registered doctor, so again, a highly qualified person, injected intravascularly, resulted in sclerosis of a branch of the right facial artery which serves her nose and right upper lip. This is a reserve, so this is still going on, so I don't know the full details, but you can see the size. So 85,000 quid and 50,000, 60,000 defence costs. So that's going to be a large claim, yeah, and poor record keeping is involved in this, so that's going to be a difficult one again to defend. So keep detailed notes again, can't stress that enough, keep the communication going. That was the damage to that one, by the way. That's what it ended up looking on that last one. Anyway, I think that is it for me. I hope I've given you some tips. Just remember, it's a little bit like driving. It's a little bit about driving a car, isn't it? You can drive a car by law, yeah, and you do have insurance, but that doesn't really help when you have a massive car crash and someone goes through the windscreen, or you knock someone over. Yes, you're insured. Yes, something will happen at the end of it, but you've got to live with those situations. And as I said at the beginning, no doctor, no practitioner, no nurse, dentist I've ever come across has ever sat there with a smile on their face when we've talked about something that has gone wrong with a procedure that they've done. Remember, medicine is the caring profession, isn't it? And we're there to make people feel better. Back to Katie Piper this morning. She was at rock bottom, had nowhere to go, had been violated, raped, sulfuric acid thrown on her face. The paramedics, when she ran out of the house, her clothes had disintegrated because it had been burned. And 6 years on, due to the profession that we all love and we work in, has rebuilt, and she's stunningly good looking. She was then. I would say you struggle not to see the beauty of that woman. And that's why we care passionately to make it get right as quickly as we can, make sure that you're pointed in the right direction, and when things do go wrong, we've got enough information to help defend you, plus look after the patient. Thank you.